Oh my God, we're live! I
We
can't believe
are
it.
live, man.
And Ammar, we are live on this day of days. This day has seen the end of Christian Horner's reign at Red Bull.
It's quite literally amazing in ways that I wouldn't have described, right? And silly season is undefeated, never lost, but really this way,
But this is silly season for team principles. I've never seen silly season involving a team principal roundabout. This is huge news. Like, can you actually think of bigger news than this? Uh, Concerning a organization in the last 10 years.
no, I cannot. And here's what I would say, right? We are 5 days removed from Christian Horner being asked at the team principals conference what his plan B would be in case Max Verstappen left, who we were all, I guess we're still not done with that particular topic, right, Shez? But guess what? Oscar Piastri initiated all of this because I could make a good argument that had Oscar not had his stop start issue or whatever you want to call it, we're not going to debate that. We've already done that, right? And if he doesn't do what he did on lap 21, Max doesn't spin, he doesn't spin out of a podium contention. This is not happening today. It might still happen, but it just might not happen today, Shez. So my reflection to you is, what do you make of that?
I think we've headed off on a tangent
Come on.
immediately, but I, I think the performance on Sunday was the straw that broke the camel's back. But it's a weird one because Max still managed to stick that dog of a car apparently on pole on Saturday. So it's not as if it was a underperforming performance. And if you were to have that performance by any other team, even at the front of the grid, like you're not suddenly seeing the team principal heading out the door. I'm sorry, but that like yes, it's a amusing way to look at it, but that's not what happened. Come on, Oscar Piastri, Plan B. No, no, sir. We're far down the list of plan letters.
So I agree with you, Shez, but here's a question for you to kick all of this off.
Yeah.
I am hearing a lot of chatter about this firing, this departure being about performance. Do you agree or disagree? Why or why not?
I I think performance is one of them. I think performance is one of a number of different reasons. But I think we should have a chat about why this is happening now, right? We can list all the different reasons and try and work out which one of those is the most likely. So let's start with the low hanging fruit. Amar, is this to do with dodgy WhatsApp messages?
Wow, I didn't think you would go that far back. No, it does not. Obviously, I mean, Chess, come on. They had this chance. If you're going to tell me that this organization took a moral stance right here, right now, or we're just, I don't know what we're eating and drinking at that point, right? This chance was available for Red Bull about a season and a half ago. They chose not to do it. They've won a championship since then, right? So I cannot for 1 second buy that is the case. Now, I would say that some of the things that are related to this transgression, if that's what you really want to call it, could have contributed to other factors that eventually led to this moment. Fair enough, we can have that discussion. There's rumors about the person that was involved in this so-called scandal was an assistant of Newey's. Newey, departed, and I don't even know if that's true or not. But even if you are to assume that, maybe that triggered something that eventually led us here. But this is nothing but another P that I would call, which is all about power play.
Yeah, yeah, I don't disagree. I don't think that in and of itself is the reason, but I do feel, and I feel that now more than ever, than that was an opening salvo in the path that's led us to where we are today. Like it was a clear indication that somebody at Red Bull, I don't know who, I think I do though actually, just didn't want Christian Horner in that role, and thought that actually he shouldn't be there. And I think that's the trigger that set everything off. And it has had disastrous consequences for Red Bull as an organization, and it probably has something to do with why we are where we are today, with Red Bull in it as a whole, not just Christian Horner being sacked. Okay, next question. If we're going to go back in time, how much do you think the loss of Dietrich Mateschitz was in terms of where we are today? Remember, he died in 2022. In fact, that was memorable for us because we were at the US Grand Prix when it was announced that year. Do you remember?
I do remember that was also the time when we learned about all of the cost cap transgressions too, right? I mean, it feels like forever ago. I think it's fair. It's a fair comment, Shez. I think that the that his passing triggered all of this, right? And this is true for any big organization anywhere else. Like once you have the head of the organization go, there's inevitably some sort of a feud. All those fissures that have existed in the org will come to surface. And I think a lot of this comes down to organizational dynamics, which is you have competing parties. Remember, they're all type A personalities who believe that their way is the way to success, and that anyone that comes in the middle of that is essentially an obstacle that needs to be crossed or eliminated right away. So in that sense, you could say that. Now, we already know who the key players are, right? It's Charlam Uvidia and their support for Christian Horner that seemed to be the case that sort of left him on as long as he did. On the other hand, Jos Verstappen has been lobbing grenades everywhere. I also think that Toto Wolff, your guy, played a role in all of this, because had Toto not meddled in some of these things, he wouldn't have poured a little bit of gasoline there. Do I blame that Toto is a key player in all of this? Absolutely not. I'm saying this sort of tongue in cheek, but in reality, these are all elements that came together. I think the departure of Newey probably set a lot of this in stone, because I think that if you're going to point to performance, right, and measure sort of the decline of Red Bull, given where they were, at the start of this rule set, I think that's probably the key where all of this starts. But no doubt, there's a lot of power play behind the scenes, and that's what's causing all of this. No doubt.
Like, Ammar, for me, that whole that event, that one event, is a trigger for all of this, because it's caused a massive change in the way that Red Bull run as an operation. Right, they've gone from being a team that had, Dietrich Mateschitz, the owner, 49% of the business, sure, but really the guy that was calling the shots with the team, providing the cash and ultimately the infrastructure. He was there, but he just let the team get on and do their thing. It's the thing that we complain about with Ferrari all the time, that the top brass can't stop themselves getting involved. But as soon as Dietrich Mateschitz left the picture, like, I don't think I really even knew who the Uvidias were before Mateschitz passed away. But now they're suddenly everywhere. And, Oliver Mintzlaff, for example, has suddenly become much more prominent. Like, you could tell that he's calling the shots in the background. And there's a little bit of, I don't know, jealousy or discomfort with the amount of control that this one guy has over a successful part of the Red Bull organization. And that, for me, is where this all stems from. That's the downfall of Red Bull as an organization. It's the fact that you no longer have the team being allowed to run as an independent entity, independent of that corporate interference. They're becoming much more like everybody else. And everybody else, every works team that you see in Formula One, just look at Alpine, look at your team Ferrari. They are hamstrung by corporate intervention. And whatever you think of Christian Horner as a person, the fact that Red Bull was built in his image, that it's his vision essentially, has been eroded over the last 18 months to 2 years. And a lot of that has to do, I think, with the fact that the bosses on both the Austrian side and the Thai side are now much more involved in the decision making. But I think that's something that we're going to have to get into a bit more as we go. But I think that ultimately is the underpinning, is a fundamental reason why Red Bull have had to do, I think, what they've done today.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I think that is perfectly correct. And that, look, at the end of the day, success is a product of consistency. And make what you will of Christian Horner as a character, what his behavior may or may not have been, as it's been alleged in what was transpiring the last 18 months or so ago. The reality is that he took a broken, really broken Jaguar team 20 years ago and built it into a powerhouse. I mean, in the same 20-year span, Ferrari has only had one championship that you might argue is actually from an era that even was before him too, right? So, but in the time that he has built this juggernaut, 8 drivers championships, 2 of them back-to-back four-peats, right? Like, you can, it's quite amazing. So you cannot, sort of look at this in a very simple way and say, yes, it's one man orchestrating it, but it's the system, the processes, really the ability to put something together that, frankly, I think Fred Vasseur is at that stage right now, as you pointed out. You're trying to put in systems and processes in play that really allow for that. But Shez, I want to sort of lead into this a little bit more, because I take umbrage with the idea of performance being the
Yeah.
key reason for it. Even though, yes, you can argue that Red Bull are nowhere close to McLaren are, but I would just submit to you this again. Max was on course for a minimum P3, I think, or a P4. Like, even if you want to do some Lewis magic on that day, right? So if that's the case, and we're going to say that performance is it, then let's look at the data. Sure, Red Bull have not had the year, and you could say they have not had this year, and a good part of last year. You sort of drive their decline, but this is, first of all, they have been winning in this rule set. They really have. You can credit Adrian Newey for it. Fair enough, but it still happened under Christian Horner's watch. By the way, should I remind you that Christian Horner led the building of this sort of Red Bull fight back, this coming back to prominence after Sebastian Vettel left, and they had some struggles in between too. So, if anything, I would argue that Christian Horner would have been the guy to bring them back, albeit with new players, perhaps taking a little bit more time than it would, because every new refresh takes some time. I mean, look at Toto Wolff too, right? He has had a great run of success, but in this rule set, he has not managed to do anything either. Is that a reason why we would fire Toto? No, absolutely not. So I would argue that performance is actually not really the case for any of this, because the results are there. And so this is all about politics and behind the scenes play. And I think that the Max Verstappen camp, not Max himself, but Max Verstappen himself, is the guy who has sort of is the camp, rather, that has sort of triggered a lot of this, albeit with all of the stuff that's gone behind the scenes. And they have been placing distraction after distraction. I just sort of go to this, right, and we'll talk about what this means for Max, right? But I think Christian Horner was asked about this by Laura Winter a few days ago, rather, to talk about, like, well, what do you see as your role? Because there are rumors about, the I would call it the locker room, whatever the Formula One equivalent of that is, has sort of lost Christian Horner. But that's really not the case, right? I mean, he came out and he said, that's rubbish too, right? And as it relates to Max, right, there's sort of been this overhanging thing about his exit, right? And we'll talk about the exit too. But the reality is that nobody knows what the future holds. So for me, like, you firing Christian Horner at this point is a massive risk, unless there's someone who's going to be ready to pick it up. Let's not forget, Ches, Christian Horner is the one that has got Red Bull to build its own powertrains, right? It's not something that they can just sort of go into. So there are massive risks with that. But Ches, I don't buy into the performance idea one bit.
Really, as in, you think it has nothing to do with it at all?
I think it has a very small piece to do with it, and he has proven time and time again that he can come back from this. I
Has
mean,
he?
that's the has
Has
he
he
not?
shown
Has he
that?
not? I just got done telling you that they had a four-peat with Seb, and then they had misery for a few years, and they've come back. I mean,
But
that's
there was a
happened on his watch.
but there was
I
a
don't even
constant.
understand why
Okay,
you would say that, but
because there's a constant presence throughout all of that, right? And it's not him, right? I understand that Christian Horner has a good understanding of how to run a race team. Like, he did it with Arden in F3000, right? Like, he understands how to run a race team, and he got really good at the politics of Formula One. The youngest ever team principal. He was what, 31, 32 when he turned up. But but there were certain people within that organization that allowed him to have the success that he had. And the problem that you have right now is that whatever you want to say about the politics at Red Bull, while Red Bull as a team were performing, i.e., winning championships, winning races, which they did in 2024, and they did to startling effect in 23 and 22. And you can't forget that emotional win for him in 2021, whatever I feel about that, right? Like if you take that out, right? That's the safety blanket that Christian Horner had, right? That whatever factions there were within the team that wanted to get rid of him, it's very difficult to do that when you've got a car that's performing and a team that's firing on all cylinders and a lead driver that is winning championships and a team that's winning a constructors championship. If you're doing all of those things, I don't see how you sack Christian Horner. And I think that the problems that he has had, the bullets that he has been dodging for the last 18 months, he's been able to fall back on the fact that, well, look, we've got performance. But now those things have started to bite him in the butt again, haven't they? And the performance isn't there because of certain things that he has done. And we know that as a direct consequence of the whatever indiscretions that he had at the beginning of last year, Adrian Newey decided to leave, and it's not just because of that. It's also because of the fact that Christian Horner has a really strong relationship with the technical director that's there right now, Pierre Vacher. And that was instrumental, I think, in Adrian Newey saying, well, look, if you think that this guy is doing all the work, cool, I'll go. And there was an almost immediate dip in performance as soon as Adrian Newey left the team. That's on Christian Horner. Adrian Newey, as you say, the allegations against him come from Adrian Newey's assistant, from what we understand. And he said himself, look, that the stuff that was going on in the background, just go have a look at the High Performance podcast. On the day that Adrian Newey was announced to Aston Martin, he said there was stuff that was going on in the background I was not comfortable with. That's directly Christian Horner's issue, and that's a performance-related
Okay.
issue.
Okay.
And if
But
you want to go further than that, Omar, Jonathan Wheatley out because there was a roadblock to him being promoted any higher. Why was there a roadblock? Because Christian Horner was there, and
okay,
before
Shiz.
that, Rob Marshall was headed off.
if
I mean,
if you're going to say that, then why do this now? This could have been done, as you're saying,
okay,
if there's a team behind. But this did not need to be done right now. I would agree with you. Look, but just keep in mind, I mean, there are dynasties after dynasties in sports that are built where you have the guy at the top, or the girl or the lady, whatever that may be. They feel like they know how to breed success even through challenges. They know how to bring the team back up to prominence. And Christian Horner has been very good at it, not just within managing the team, but the politics of everything. So I can see why, if I'm him, I'm saying, listen, man, I know how to bring us back. Relax. These people are leaving. We've had success in the past too. We will have success. I can duplicate that. And it's also okay for his proteges, if that's what you want to call it, at least from a hierarchical standpoint, to say, okay, well, we know how to do this. We'll do it elsewhere, as is the case with McLaren and Rob Marshall. You can see everything that's out there. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I can understand that people under Christian would want him to leave because they would want to show what they can do. And man, winning brings all of this stuff. It's easy when you're not winning to kind of have everyone pull in one direction. But once you start winning, everyone thinks they're the
but Omar,
reason that they have a lot
how
to do
much
with
of a
this.
brain drain are you going to accept? Like all of the pillars that
But they can
actually make Red
replenish
Bull
it too.
with what,
Man,
Omar?
at some point they're going to go out and get people to. I mean, we talk about this with Ferrari too. They
There
have the
are.
same issue. You say that Ferrari has enough brains in there. Well, when they cannot produce a car that can win and they cannot strategize on Sundays, so I would argue that
When
Red Bull are
when
well
the when
equipped
the
to do that too.
when the Verstappens are out there saying we don't think that Pierre Vacher has the nous to bring us answers, like, and the evidence is there in front of you. Like, despite the fact that Max and Perez were sitting there saying this car is not right, the technical team just didn't listen to them. They said, no, you're still winning, so let's just keep going down the same route and look where we are today.
Shez, I agree
And
with you. I mean,
that's a technical team that Christian Horner has back. Now, look, I am not saying that performance is the only reason, but it's the backbone of any Formula One team. And the reason that they are not performing right now, like, has it, like, we always say that the buck stops with the team principal because they're making all the decisions, right? And Christian Horner does make a lot of these decisions, but this is an example where you can draw direct lines between why there has been a drop in performance and why certain technical people have left that organization.
and I would agree with you. And it takes time
But
for it
how is
to
performance?
rebuild. It takes time. But Shez, the question isn't, of course, there's going to be a downfall. When you have as many people leave, there is going to be a dip. And we have seen this dip happening for quite a while. And Max rescued them in some way last year by winning the drivers, being able to defend, Max being Max, right? And so I think all of the criticisms are fair. The question is he the guy to not bring you back to where you need to be or not? That's the question. I don't disagree with where he's at. So if you're saying, okay, we're going to look forward and we're going to need a change here, you're going with the Max
Okay,
Verstappen camp,
Amar,
presumably. We don't even know how long Max is going to race. He's talking
okay,
about retiring after
yeah.
28.
But Amar, what you are now describing is why you think that Christian Horner should stay in the role, right? We are asking the question: why do we think he has gone? And more pertinently, why has he gone now? Right? That's the
Correct.
question you're asking.
Yes. Hmm.
But none of what you have said, especially when you take into account what we just said, that Dietrich Mateschitz is no longer with us, that Red Bull is much more of a corporate entity. When you put that into it, right, they are now after instant results and they can see that the team is not doing well and Christian Horner is responsible for key people leaving, and therefore the easy answer to that is, right, you're out, mate, this is your fault, you're taking the blame for it. Do I think that is the right approach? No, I don't necessarily think it's the right approach. In fact, I never think that's the right approach. We've done an entire video on Fred Vasseurs' tenure at Ferrari and why I don't think that firing him is a good idea. And I think the same thing for Christian Horner as well, based on what you are saying, that this is a guy that knows how to run this team. And if someone understands the workings of that team, then you give them the shot to try and get it back on track again. But the corporate guys are not going to see it like that. They're shareholders that
Shez,
only care about the bottom line.
can I ask you this? If you are Red Bull leadership, right? You're everything that you just said. Who are you going to put in now that'll bring them back to prominence? I mean, Christian Horner got them
Lauren
to
Meckies.
their
That's
own.
what they've done.
Lauren Meckies is going to be the guy. And
They
please, there's
have
no dig at Lauren Meckies, but I mean, Christian Horner has them building their own engines. I mean, they're going to be next to Mercedes and Ferrari, the only other constructor that has pretty much soup to nuts the whole thing under them. Why would you let him go at this point if that's what you? Unless you said, okay, let's do this a year in advance. Like, I mean, I don't understand. Like, that's going to happen in 6 months.
But I'm honest, again, for me, this is more of the same corporate intervention, right? This is the corporate side of things saying, look, we are going to take more responsibility for how this is run. And we will start making those decisions about who is running and how much interference we're going to have in how that person is running the team. And if they get Laura Meckies in, a guy that, sure, Christian Horner brought in the first instance, but someone that they can control, great. That's who you're going to get in. But I think we're probably getting a bit off topic. I do think the performance is a big part of this, but the main question is about the final asset that Red Bull still have at their disposal, the magic bullet that seems to be able to get this car to do things that nobody else is able to do. Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you this question, right? Because this is a question that I think is fundamental to understanding why Christian Horner is not there anymore. And I agree with you, it's not about performance. It is about Max leaving the team. And now we had a lot of news. And do you remember last year when there was that whole thing about Max saying if Helmut Marko goes, I'm out, whereas there was some sort of reports that the Verstappens were threatening to leave if Christian Horner was still there, right? With Jos Verstappen famously saying he's going to ruin this team, right? So my question is this a play to keep Max Verstappen at Red Bull,
Oof.
number one, or is it that Max Verstappen has already decided to leave, and this is Red Bull corporate, GmbH, Austria, and Thai suddenly coming together to say, mate, you've lost us Adrian Newey, Jonathan Wheatley, Rob Marshall, Will Courtney. This is all on you. The performance is all gone. And now Max Verstappen's gone as well. This is your fault. You're gone. So is it that Max Verstappen is going to still be there in 2026 because they've got rid of Horner, or that he's already gone
No.
and Horner has paid the price?
Okay, these are loaded questions, Shez. Before
Of
I
course they
start
are.
answering this, I want to give a shout out to everyone that's joined the live stream. Right, we're 25 minutes into this. We're doing our usual thing. Thank you for joining us for the first time. Special shout out to AJ. Casual, good to see you, Michael. Thanks for making it here. By the way, we love Cam, and so if he's stealing our viewers, that's great. We're going to steal some of his too. But I also want to address the fact that Michael said that this is the worst Red Bull car since 2008. Yeah, probably. I get it. But they've also won 4 championships leading up to this moment. So
And
I do
two
want to do a
races
little
this
bit
season.
of
Two races this season.
and 2
Just
races and almost had
FYI.
another podium. And again, if you're just joining us, I'm accusing Piastri of all of this because had he not done what he did at that second safety car start, Max is essentially on the podium at least, and none of this happened. So thanks again for joining the stream. So yeah, look, I get it, Ches. I mean, look, first of all, to your question of does Red Bull corporate know that all of these people left? Adrian Newey probably,
Pretty
but
sure.
like
No,
everything
they
else, like Rob Marshall, all of these, and I don't know. I don't know about that. Just I've gone and reported in various corporate structures, and they know very little about the details and nuances than we'd like to give them credit for. I think we go into these thinking,
But they always
but
like
they,
to,
they,
Ammar,
they
always
don't know
like
that.
to meddle, though.
Now
They always like to meddle. Like
they do like to meddle. I do
even in
agree.
my sphere of profession, they like to stick
Well,
their mucky fingers into
no,
stuff they
I do not disagree with that. But I think if to your point, if they're going to Christian Horner and saying, "Mate, you lost us all of these people, get the heck out," that's not what's happening. What I do think it could be happening is Yoss is sending emails to the board. They're firing one email or text. How are they communicate these days, right? It's WhatsApp messages, maybe. Who knows? And say, look, we're getting the hell out. And there's no doubt that they're flirting with Toto, and Toto flirting back with them has probably speeding up all of this stuff, right? But look, again, the idea that people leave a winning team is not new, right? I mean, people go in and try different things, even at teams that are not as successful. I mean, look at what Ferrari has had. I mean, Laura Mecchi comes from Ferrari essentially, right? I mean, this is
Oh,
not so. Change is inevitable, Ches. As the good old saying goes, the only thing that's changing is everything, and that's fine. And look, if you're going to argue that Red Bull have a disastrous year this year, I'm with you. But they've had 4 great years.
okay, Ammar.
You know what I would give for Ferrari to have
Ammar,
one of those 4 great
Ammar.
years?
Okay, you need to take those not Toro Rosso, those Rosso
Red Bull
Pomodoro,
Racing Bull.
exactly, those Rosso Pomodoro tinted lenses off your glasses. This isn't about Ferrari, right? Red Bull have had the same team principal, the same technical director
Oh,
since 2006.
and I
That
agree. So this
those
would be
two
a
have
good
been
time
to
for
wait.
change, Des.
They've been together since 2006. In fact, they went through those 4 years where they were amazing, right? They kept that core team together. And then they had the fallow years, the 8 seasons where actually I think they were just taking a break. I've said this before, but I think all of the years that Mercedes were dominating, Red Bull were just
Wow.
they were
Now,
just having an off 8 years,
are you
and it
saying
was
Lewis Hamilton
and it was
championships
all
don't
it
count?
was all Renault related, which again actually you can probably pin on Christian Horner, but maybe a conversation for another day. Maybe not a conversation for another day, especially when we're talking about powertrains. But at that point, the key staff didn't leave. Yes, there is movement of personnel between teams. There always is. But when there's been a mass exodus of the entire main cohort of your team, you're gonna fall. Look at Ferrari. Let's talk about your team, right? They had the winning formula. They had Rory Byrne, they had Michael Schumacher, they had Ross Brawn and Jean Todt, right? Rory, Ross, and Michael all left, right, by 2007. They were all gone, other than Jean Todt, right? And what happened? They have not won another championship of any description since 2008. Tell me that allowing your top team, your top staff to leave doesn't affect your performance, with that as an example.
I mean, look, it absolutely does. Again,
Oh,
I'm not disputing any of this. So let's just move on for the sake of not being here stuck, right? And so your question about Max, right? So I do think that the Max Verstappen camp, not Max himself, just for the just to clear out any confusion that might come, but the Jos Verstappen camp, let's just put it that way, has triggered all of this for all kinds of interpersonal dynamic reasons that are fully comprehensible and yet surprising. Because to me, the question that comes to my mind is, what is it that Jos wants? He wants Christian Horner gone. You're telling me for some reason that goes beyond racing and performance, and so I'm hearing a lot of people say, well, this might mean that Max stays because Christian Horner is gone. But what do you actually have to gain from this? Like, are you just telling me that someone's going to step in and into the new rule set and just bring Red Bull back to dominance, given how everyone's left? Like, so how can you tell me that can be something that satisfies them? It could have been something that could have satisfied them 18 months ago, not now.
yes, but
But
I,
not
but
now. But how is it going to
but
help
now,
now?
there's nothing to lose, is there? Because like they don't have anybody in the technical department, and actually Christian Horner's um, defense of Pierre Vacher is a main contributor to this. Look, put yourself in Max Verstappen's shoes. Yeah, so Max is sitting there driving the absolute balls off this car. Like he is this season by far the best driver on the grid, right? And yet he is nowhere near winning a championship. He is not going to win the Drivers' Championship this season. How angry would that make you? Right? You're out there getting podiums and wins in a car that your teammate can't get out of quali one, right? And sure, there's a whole thing about only Max can drive the car, but Max has been telling you since
What
the
was
middle
that
of
noise?
2023, mate, this car is pants. Yes, I'm getting results, but it's rubbish. Do something about it. And Horner's been sitting there going, no. Pierre Vacher's got this. And Pierre Vacher's going, I've got this. And they haven't got this.
God.
Like Perez has been sitting there saying the same thing. So what does Christian Horner do? Perez it's his fault. This guy that's been with us since 2021, loyal as hell, right? We're going to get rid of him. And we're going to bring in Liam freaking Lawson. I mean, even Helmut Marko at the postseason tire test was like, yeah, Yuki's pretty good actually. Maybe we should have him in the car. No. We're going to have Liam Lawson. And then we're going to sack him after 2 races. And then what is Max thinking? Max is again going, guys, it's not the car. It's not the driver. You've got rid of Liam Lawson after 2 races. He was doing all right. Give him a chance. It's the car. Do something about the car. They still won't do it. So if you're asking me why the Verstappens are angry about Christian Horner, that's the evidence. It's right there in front of our faces, and it's been staring us in the faces for 18 months.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I don't want to talk about the second Red Bull seat because that is a different topic for a different day, Shez. I agree with you. Everything is
Oh,
fair. I mean, and look, we are judging the outcome, right? And then saying, look, Horner trusting Pierre Vacher, with now is Pierre Wash, essentially, it was not the right decision. But we let's also not pretend like everyone else is running away with it. Only McLaren have nailed it. There's no other constructor that can come in week after week and contend for wins this year. So look, everyone's been looking for answers, and McLaren have found the key to whatever this issue is, and challenges are that bog down this era of Formula One, as Red Bull did at the start of it. That's just how it is. No one else has quite nailed it. So again, the idea that you're going to just fire him right now and go from there and just come back to relevance, to me doesn't make sense. Now, I would just, in agreement with you, I would say maybe this is the end of Christian Horner. Maybe this is the end of an era, and that's fine. If that's what they're doing, that to me would now suggest that Red Bull are heading reset, which then I'm going to jump the gun here, Shez. This doesn't mean that Max stays. This actually means that he leaves. Maybe not
Yeah,
next year, but this is all about 27 now.
sure, but maybe it's not about relevance. Maybe this is a Hail Mary to keep Max in the car because he's literally their only asset right now. Amar, before you carry on, just want to say hello to some of you guys in the chat. Michael, what up? Gino Mono. I hope I've said that right. Hello, people. Hello to you too, my friend. AJ, Jos wants to have the career Max has and power that he never
Oof,
had. LOL. I agree. I agree.
come
But,
on.
but Jos has been living vicariously through Max
This
since
is
the
the trend now.
karting days.
You know, if you
And I
watch,
think he's done a great job.
yeah, he
I think he's
has.
done a
And
great job with him.
Shaz, if you watch NBA, right, this is now a trend where there are a lot of dads that are living their careers through their sons. In this case, in the NBA, because we've had quite a few incidents. Sidetrack. We're back to you.
but nobody's been quite as invested in the minutiae of how their child's career is going to progress
Mhm.
as Jos Verstappen has. I don't think anyway,
Yeah.
and certainly from reading some of the books that have come out around Max and his meteoric rise, and it has been meteoric really. Like Jos has played a massive part in that.
I mean, I mean, that old saying, right? Be careful what you wish for. So I think this makes the Max Verstappen move very, very interesting, Jess. But oh, by the way, I just want to make sure we give credit to Nico. This was not a knock on it. As you guys know, Max spun on his own. Now, you could blame Oscar for it, but he did spin on his own. Otherwise, that was probably a Max podium. And by the way, Red Bull have been really good at handling race situations. I mean, that's been a key strength, and you can give some credit to Christian there too, because what he's assembled behind the scenes has really allowed them to do that. I mean, look at the
Oh,
difference, Shaz, between when Red Bull take a risk. Yes, what was that race where they had the late safety car and Max had to go on hards and he got off the podium essentially? But I mean, good God, I mean, those are good risks. And look at what
yes, but
Ferrari do
Amar,
on the other
yeah,
hand.
but Amar, even that is falling apart. So if you listen to any of the stuff that's come out of the established sort of legacy media today, when it comes to this, they're already talking about like I always talk about a Formula One team having three main areas, right? It's about operations, it's about technical, it's about strategy.
Yeah,
Those are
I
the
agree.
three things
Yeah.
that make up a Formula One team, right? But we've already talked about from the technical point of view that they've had their technical team gutted. Newey gone, Marshall gone, Vache taking the lead, but not really understanding where to go, just having this tunnel vision and cul-de-sac route. But also from an operations point of view, they've lost Jonathan Wheatley because he had a ceiling upon which towards which he could rise. He couldn't go any higher. And Will Courtney has now left as well. And just like Rob Marshall, the worst place, he's gone to McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
And the reports are that there's no leadership now in that operations team. Like we all talk about Hannah Schmidt sitting there on the pit wall, but yes, she comes up with strategy, but she has to work within a team and a leadership structure. But that structure isn't there when you don't have leaders. That's why we're starting to see that actually they're
Yep.
even across this season and towards the end of last season, you could see that their operations were becoming much more conservative. Their strategy was becoming much less robust. It was much more just following what everybody else was doing. And you're going to start seeing that their pit stops are going to get longer and longer and longer. And, like they're going to go down the same cul-de-sac the technical team has, which is they'll just focus their operations and their strategy directly on Max because they don't have a robust structure for working out how to use both cars or set them up well or manage the race operations on a weekend because those leaders aren't there. And again, that comes back to Christian Horner.
Yeah.
So actually, Amar, this leads, I think, to the next big question, right? You've talked a lot about this is a clean slate for Red Bull, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you have first dibs on the answer to this question. But Christian Horner out, what does Red Bull look like? Are they successful or are they like where are they in 26, 27, 28?
I mean, I think this is TBD, right, Chess? Because we don't know what the
Well,
powertrains will look like.
no
Man, come
shizzle,
on, be.
Amar. Obviously, it's
I mean, if
TBD.
I were to bet, okay, fine, I'll give you this. probably not successful the next couple of years. I just, you cannot, you've had enough departures, as you said, and now Horner leaving. Whatever you make of it, and shout out to M in the chat who said I think Horner is underrated. I would agree. I'm not his biggest fan either. He is underrated, and I think we just do not give enough credit to a top level leadership that really acts, like the conductor of an orchestra, and that's what Horner has done. And make what you will of his way of handling the media, other stuff, all of that. You can hate him if you're not Team RB. If you're Team RB, you probably love him, as did many of the employees there, Chaz. So I would imagine that Red Bull are going to struggle. I think the big unknown, and why I say TBD really, is we don't know what the powertrains will look like. And I am not going to buy that Mercedes is a shoe in to be excellent there. Probably they might have the best engines there, but look, man, we always have these things where we lead into a season thinking X, Y, and Z is going to happen, and rarely does most of it, if any of it, happen. So you have to wait and see what happens. But I really kind of come back to this, right, Chess? Red Bull must have a plan to have someone put in leadership there that they believe can take them to the next level. Otherwise, this firing right now doesn't make sense. You could have done this maybe a year and a half later at the end of 27, which I believe will also 26 rather, which I believe will also coincide with the Max timeline too. So I would say they're going to struggle here in the short term, Shez. But I don't know. You'll tell me otherwise.
Well, I think the omens aren't great, right? Because as you say, they are now going into a brand new rule set, and I think actually in most of these rule sets you could roughly predict who was going to do well. Like even in 2014 when the new engine rules came in, like Mercedes had spent so much time on this, and there was so much stuff in the background that you'd heard that actually it wasn't a massive surprise that they suddenly switched it on. What was a surprise was that other teams like Red Bull and Ferrari weren't as high up as Mercedes were. But the fact that Mercedes has stolen a march wasn't a surprise, I didn't think. And similarly, when we got to the new ground effect rules in 2022, you kind of knew that when the major part um, of the rule shake-up is an aerodynamic one, and a particular team has Adrian Newey, that team's probably going to do pretty well. And we weren't wrong. Like Red Bull were great at the beginning of this championship, at the beginning of this rule set. And again, you have to kind of go with what you hear. So yeah, sure, Red Bull powertrains could throw up an absolutely massive surprise. But if you're a betting person, you're going to bet the house on who's going to come out on top. You put it on one of the established power unit manufacturers, and that's going to be your Mercedeses and your Ferraris. Maybe Honda actually, because actually they came out of the last power unit rule set actually with a decent idea of how to build a good power unit. I don't see Red Bull powertrains being that, or Ford or whatever they're going to be badged as. I can't see that they're going to be the ones that are going to be on top. And then when you factor in like how their aero department is working right now, their technical team is working right now. There's not a lot of optimism. I can't be glass half full about it because what is there?
Yeah.
And just play into the fact that like if Max Verstappen was not in this car right now, yeah, maybe if you'd stuck a George Russell or a Charles Leclerc in that car, maybe they'd be getting similar results. But the second car would still be doing what it's doing right now, right? They are at best a
Well, I
midfield
mean,
team right now, at
I
best.
when I think this is where I think the Horner's downfall is that they put all of the proverbial eggs in the Max Verstappen basket, right? And so I think this is why I believe they would have to do a little bit of a reset now, particularly because I think it's fair to see Max leaving at some point. It's probably not next year. I'm going to guess he's going to check out what everything looks like next year, and then kind of decide. So for me, this is all about 27 in some case, but. Shaz, I want to ask you this: so what do you make now of Max? Because this is it seems like I would imagine he's going to head for the exit, but maybe not right away. But at some point in the next year or so, I mean, we could be here next year talking about whether Max is going to Mercedes or not.
Yeah, I mean, if it were me and I had Max's talent, something that I'm never going to have, and I was able to pedal a Formula One car the way he does, I would not see a future at Red Bull. Like, I mean, they may have, the Verstappens may have been instrumental in finally gutting the team of even their team principal. Um, but but that because of all of the reasons that I've just said, Max is a driver that wants to have his talent repaid. He wants to be able to win championships and races. Like he said it before, like for him, a good race is where he drives off into the distance with a 30-second lead. And he's not getting that right now. And this car is making well, it's not making him look bad because he's doing like miraculous things with it. But it has the potential to make him look not so good. And he's not enjoying it. Why would he stay? Especially when there isn't a prospect of that team um, doing better. And there's always a little hint that drivers are not happy with their team when they start doing stuff in the background. Like the amount of focus his sim racing has taken this season, the Spa 24 hours stuff, him setting up the GT3 team, all of those things. Like I remember Fernando doing that towards the tail end of his McLaren stint, where he was heading off to Monaco. He was heading. Oh, he was always at Monaco. He was heading off to Indy and doing Le Mans, like in between his Formula One bits and pieces, because he was just like, what's the point in me doing this? Like I'm busting my guts in this dog of a car. What's the point? And Max in his prime is not. It's not. I don't think he's going to want to do that. I don't see a good reason other than loyalty to Milton Keynes in him staying.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear, and we can drum up the discussion board on where Max will go. Will he go to Mercedes? Will he go to Aston? Will he maybe go to Alpine if Horner ends up there somehow, or will he just take a sabbatical? I think all options are on the table. I mean, this news is so massive in that the timing of it makes everything very, very interesting. So I would agree with you. I just don't see how Max will continue in this era of Red Bull, given that they're already on a decline. And you go out and find greener pastures, and we'll probably debate at some point whether this means being alongside or being in George Russell's seat, right? And that would be a fun
Yeah,
discussion.
so I think yeah, stay tuned for that. I have a feeling there'll be another live session with us talking about where Max Verstappen goes. But given that I don't want to take attention away from the guy that we're actually talking about.
Yeah.
Um, what's Christian Horner going to do next? And I say that looking directly
At my Ferrari in the
at
background.
yes,
Uh,
yes, yes,
I
at
mean,
SF 23.
we have done before this happened. We've done a little bit of why Ferrari should stick with Fred Vasseur. So I'm going to stick to that too, right? Look, I agree. I could see why we would all be in Tifosi land charmed with the idea of Christian Horner coming, but if you just take a minute to examine what has led to his success, it is not something that works very well with Ferrari. In fact, it's the exact opposite of what they want to do. And I would argue that if they want to adopt the Christian Horner model, then they should do that with Fred Vasseur. They're probably going to get somewhere close to what Christian has done over the last 20 years, and they'll have a lot of success as well. So I love the idea on paper of Christian Horner being that. Look, I think for Christian Horner, this is going to be too much, like moving to Maranello, family, kids, etc. Does he really want to do this? And I think that if he were going to do that, when we had rumors of him being connected to Ferrari a couple of weeks ago,
Hmm.
he probably would have given a little bit more steam to that. My guess is he probably knew that he didn't know that he was going to be departing Red Bull, at least not maybe at this point. Back when those conversations are happening, it didn't seem like he wanted to entertain it then. I don't see why he would want to entertain it after being asked about how Fred is doing there and everything that Fred is going through. I'm not sure he would want that heat. I mean, he has a legacy built that puts him in a Hall of Fame status, no matter how you think about him, right? So why would he want to go there? And I think conversely for Ferrari, if you're not going to give up ownership, if you're not going to give Christian Horner something he really needs, which and give him the freedom that he desires and he needs to work with, then this doesn't make any sense. You do what you're doing with Fred and see how best you can build it.
But those conversations have been had We
Yeah,
think, right?
no, no harm in having conversations, though.
We know that John Elkann has been having conversations with Christian Horner, because Horner has turned around and said that, oh yeah, it's just normal to have these conversations, and I'm really flattered that that Ferrari have come to talk to me, and then suddenly, that there's this news, and we can thank our mate Cameron for this one, that Fred Vasseur's contract expires at the end of 25, is it? Um, and suddenly, look, Christian Horner's
That's
no
news.
longer at Red Bull. So answer me this, right? Because what I'm not debating whether or not Ferrari are interested in Christian Horner, but let's take the hypothetical that
Oof.
Horner does go to Ferrari at the expense of Fred Vasseur.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is there an uptick in performance?
No, no. Why would there be an uptick in performance? Well, there might be one 5 years from now if they're patient enough to keep him that long. Like, I mean,
Ah,
again,
there it is.
I mean, those of you that are saying he should just go there and he can switch on some magic button, newsflash, there isn't anything like that. If there were, they would have done it. I mean, the guys they had in place, I mean, I'm critical of Mattia, but even he could have done it. Like, if these people can't do it, like, just again, Christian Horner has been very successful in a particular setup, and that is not something that Ferrari offer in any way, shape, or form. So even if you put Toto Wolff, even if you bring Jean Todt back from when he was there, even he prime Jean Todt couldn't do this, right? So just please stop it. Like, the issues with Ferrari are not at the team principal level; it's everything beyond it. So if you want to make a change in leadership there, if you're saying that Christian Horner is going to take John Elkann's role, cool. I'm down for that discussion, or Benedetto Vigna. Like that, those are not things that are going to happen. So again, if there's something that really interests Christian Horner, it should be Alpine. It's down the street from where he is right now. It's not that much. Ferrari is
Yes,
just a little
yeah,
bit
yeah,
too
yeah,
much,
yeah,
man.
yeah. I agree. And I think those are the two options that he has. I still don't think that Alpine is a particularly good option unless
Better
there is
than Ferrari.
a very particular circumstance that happens, right? But yeah, look, Ferrari work best when the big corporates, and by that I even mean the old man himself, Enzo Ferrari, takes a step back and lets the team do their thing. The two big eras where Ferrari were properly good were in the mid 70s when Luca de Montezemolo, Mauro Forgieri, and Niki Lauda had their little triumvirate and basically um, pushed the old man out the picture and then did their little thing. They won championships, and then again that template was followed in the mid 90s and early 2000s when Jean Todt, Ross Brawn, Rory Byrne, and Michael Schumacher basically said to Luca de Montezemolo, mate, stay out of it. This is our team. We are calling the shots right now. Right. And they did that and they had massive success. If Christian Horner drops into this situation, we already know that, John Elkann was instrumental in hiring Fred Vasseur in the first instance, right? And yet, as soon as he's not happy with the results, there's suddenly all this noise in the Italian media, and Fred Vasseur's contract is suddenly exposed. Oh, we're thinking about getting rid of him. He's now started to listen to he has to listen to Lewis Hamilton. All of this nonsense, right? Christian Horner turns up in that, and yeah, he might get a year to sort of do the things that he would normally do and get his house in order. But as soon as he gets his house in order and the results aren't immediately there, he's out again, because that's just how Ferrari work, and that's not how Christian Horner works. It took him from 2005 until 2009 for Red Bull to even win a race. And Ferrari, in their current guise, just would not accept that. Right. So I agree with you. I think that Alpine are actually probably a better bet, but only in a particular circumstance. And that is
Uh
that
oh.
he and Flavio, with their lovely Mercedes custom engines, set up a consortium where they buy out the team from
Oof.
Renault.
Oof. My
That's
goodness.
the only way I see that working.
You know,
But the amount of capital they would need, like it's going to be in excess of $1 billion now, isn't it,
it's
to buy
probably
out
that.
a Formula One team?
Yeah, it's probably that. Just the did you think the idea of Christian Horner being successful with Mercedes engine, like the jokes write for themselves, man. Like that would be pretty amazing if he does that.
I think it's even more funny if Christian Horner goes to Ferrari and Max goes to Mercedes, and suddenly Christian
Oof,
Horner is team principaling Lewis Hamilton, and Toto Wolff is team principaling Max Verstappen.
that would be
That
quite
would be
amazing.
brilliant.
I would
I
then
would
vote
pay
for
big
like
money to see that.
team radio to be broadcast once again, like with not radio with the officials rather. I'd vote for
Michael,
whatever 2021
Michael,
version that
I
comes
want permission to email Christian.
yeah, I mean, I love the fascination of Horner to Ferrari, but that's probably not a good idea for anyone. This is mutually assured disaster,
It
really.
may not be a good idea, but can I be very, very clear about this? That although me and Amar are both sitting here saying we don't think it's a good idea
It
for
could
Christian
happen.
Horner to go to Ferrari, it's very,
It's
very
very
possible that
yes,
he
yes.
goes to Ferrari.
We should Ferrari's not. My pain and misery continues even on a day that Christian Horner gets fired. Like there is a Ferrari thread to it. Oh my god. Shez, I think look, Alpine is probably the best bet or something else. Maybe he can buy the second Red Bull team. Who knows? And start his own thing. Who knows? They might sell it to him for a pretty penny too.
I think
Probably less than $1 billion.
no, I think it
You
would
don't want to
be.
entertain that. Yeah.
Okay, so can we just answer a couple
Sure.
of
Let's do
comments
it.
in the because some of these are quite amusing. So can we start off with M? Were they wrong to get rid of Perez? So this is
Oof.
referencing the fact that Christian Horner pushed pretty hard to get rid of Sergio Perez, paying him off so he can get Liam Lawson in. Your views, please. 1 year later, almost.
Yeah, I think that was a bad decision. I think that's fair to say. I think Checo's given voice to it as well, right? And now you can see kind of where all of that went. Like one of the things that I think is very fair in terms of criticism of Christian Horner is the fact that he, as the leader of the team, put all his efforts behind pleasing Max, and I think that ultimately undid everything. And I think the line of drivers that have been sacrificed along the way speak for themselves. I think they would have been better off keeping Checo, but to be honest, in the moment, reflecting on those performances that were happening, that didn't make any sense. I thought the mistake was not necessarily getting rid of Checo when they did. The mistake was renewing him when they did. And they did it so far early in the season, Ches. I don't remember. Maybe it was the first couple of races or something like that, after which we got news of his contract being renewed for 2 years. I thought that was a little bit
Oh,
unnecessary, perhaps driven
so
through
dumb.
commercial interest, right? So
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
probably where that I would put that in there if they really wanted to see what the future looks like. I'm also not quite 100% sure of what their stable looks like, right? Because if these drivers that are coming through their stable and struggling with the Red Bull car, I don't know how, like, I mean, all of a sudden, like, I mean, Isaac Hadjar is having a great season. I wouldn't want to put him in that second Red Bull seat.
Yeah.
I mean, Arvid Lindblad, all of these, why would you do that? So I'm either their development program is not good enough, or it just could be what we all think it is, which is they're so focused, they're so niche in how they're doing this that they cannot do anything else, practically speaking.
So this is where for me it gets quite interesting, right? Because I think the decision to get rid of Perez was probably not the wrong one. And I'll tell you why in a second. But the way it was done was dumb, right? To give him a 2 year extension and then 5 minutes later saying, "Sorry, you don't have a seat for next year." Like I have never ever in the history of any sport seen a team go, "You're doing crap, so we're going to give you a 2 year extension as a incentive to get better." That doesn't work, right? So I thought that whole thing was dumb. But what it has done is that it has finally properly exposed that the problem at Red Bull and that second driver seat in particular is not the driver, it's the car. Because how often have we now said with Yuki in that second seat, and is that exactly what you said about Hadjar, Lindblad in the future getting in that car, that was scared of them getting in that car. The conversation has moved away from Yuki's doing a bad job to they cannot build a car that allows their second driver to do anything, because it's only one person can drive it, and even that person is not happy with the way the car is running right now. So I think for that reason, it wasn't a bad idea that they got rid of Perez, but they still haven't really learned their lesson. And the real problem that I have with Horner when it comes to the second driver right now is that rather than sticking Yuki Tsunoda in the car, the logical choice, the guy with experience, the guy that had actually performed better than Liam Lawson over the course of the races that they were with, they said, no, 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 no. We're going to go with potential. And then they stuck Liam Lawson in that car, a car that nobody else can drive, with a grand total of 6 races under his belt prior to that. And then expected him to suddenly, 11 races, wasn't it? Under his belt prior to that, to suddenly switch it on and be on Max's level, despite what he says. Oh, yeah. In fact, even he was saying, it doesn't matter if I don't do well. I'm here to learn from Max. That's not what you want to hear from your driver. Whereas Yuki's sitting there saying, I can drive this car. I can get on with it. And they bring him in halfway through the championship. When he's had no preseason testing. Absolute nonsense. Okay, one more question, because I think this will be quite fun.
There's a particularly interesting one that just came in from one of our regulars too.
Hit me.
So shout out to Miko. Thanks for joining us, mate. I know you've been asking for a lot of these, so we appreciate the love. Shez, this one is for you, man. What will Lewis do? Let me see. Yeah, what will Lewis do if Horner does come to Ferrari? That is an interesting one. We haven't talked about the Lewis Hamilton angle in this, have we? What do you think?
I think that Christian Horner goes back to being Christian Horner in the trenches. Like, back my driver no matter what. So Lewis Hamilton will have a bad race, or he'll have an incident, and there'll be Christian Horner like in the paddock with some telemetry, with a broken piece of carbon fiber furniture. This fell off his car. It was an errant groundhog. Or Max drove over my driver's foot, or something like that. I think Horner would come out to bat for Lewis, because like that's what he's done for every driver that's been under him. Like when Sebastian Vettel behaved like a numpty, Multi 21 or Turkey 2010. Horner was out there to bat for him, man. They didn't sit there and go, "Oh yeah, it was Mark Webber's fault." It's all Mark Webber. Mark Webber's your guy. Like, don't be mean to him. Nah, they said, "Mark, get in your place. You are a number 2. You know that." That's what Christian Horner would do. He'd come out to bat for his drivers. How would Lewis react? I think if they give him a fast car, he'll just be happy with that.
Wow!
And if
Wow!
he's able to
Come on,
perform,
man!
he'll
Come
do his
on!
thing.
You chickened out with that. Come on! You can't! You can't! There is so much history between the two. I don't know,
You think
man.
that he's gonna come out at a press conference and he's gonna say, Christian, now that you're my team boss, would you like to repeat what you said after Silverstone 2021? Maybe
exactly.
you'd like to tell me what you think.
Tell us like it is, Shez. Tell us like it is. We're an hour into this, mate. Thank you to all of you that have stuck around. I just want to say this, Shez. I think you're painting a very utopian picture. I do not think that'll happen. I actually think that if you want to put the number one reason why Christian Horner wouldn't come to Ferrari is Lewis Hamilton, right? Because Lewis has been vocal about backing Fred as late as I think a couple of days ago, whenever that interview with Sky was like, and he's talked about Fred all over again. So if Horner comes in, who essentially his number one enemy off track, if you will, I don't see how that happens. I think you're going to now see a whole nother layer of silly season altogether. I don't think it. So yeah, I mean we're sort of joking about this, but I really think that Lewis Hamilton is a key reason why Horner wouldn't come to Ferrari. I really do.
Come on. Like,
Come
work
on.
with the most successful driver of all time. I think he'd be pretty happy with that.
I think he believes that's Max. So,
but I also think it would be a total disaster, and not because of Christian Horner. Like, I don't think it would be a disaster because of Christian Horner. It will be a disaster because Ferrari managed to make a disaster out of whichever top talent they managed to get in their team or in their car. And on that, I just want to give a last little shout out to some of our friends. Human Flies, what's up? Number 1, can you have a non-compete if you get sacked? I thought there was if you chose to go somewhere else.
It sounded like Christian Horner is still being paid by Red Bull,
Yeah,
and
he's
there's a
still part
leaked
of the
video.
organisation,
It's
but I think like he doesn't have any technical secrets, I don't think, so I think he'd be able to go.
it's probably known completely.
Gar McGregor, what up? AJ, what up? Leando Munga, what up? Thank you for joining us on our first ever live. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We enjoyed it. Well, at least I did. Did you?
I did. This was fun. It's nice to do this. Thank you to all of you that joined us. This was a lot of fun. We'll be back with more of these soon.
But as usual, please like, please subscribe, please leave us a comment. We're here fairly often. And we love hearing from you guys. We'll respond to everything that we see in the comments. And we will see you guys in the next one.
Later.